success, the nobleness, and ever again divine.
Hey, thank you for joining in. So we're going to do a very special series. It's kind of really close to my heart and have somewhat a good amount of experience. But I'm doing this with Max Fisher. Now, Max Fisher is running for the 8th District House of Delegates, and that's out of what areas?
Mostly Herndon.
Mostly Herndon. Herndon's a fantastic area. But we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences with this subject. The subject is society's lost children. And it's something that I really am passionate about, something that we actually need in our society, us stepping up as mentors and doing certain things to help our kids out. Max comes from a very special background with this, and I'll let him talk a little bit about his life.
Great. Yeah, I was adopted as a very young age, and I was fortunate enough to be adopted into a really great home. And it's only been relatively recently that I actually figured out the story behind my adoption. And I think what's interesting is growing up, I never really thought that I would ever find those answers. And I didn't really think that I even needed to know those answers at the time. I mean, I grew up, I had a great family, lived in a great area. I lived in suburban Kansas City when I grew up. And then I moved out here in 2002 to go to school and just basically relocate. I've always loved being in the DC area. And it was only recently, it was back in 2016 that we had a family friend that actually reached out on social media. And she's like, well, do you want to know something about your birth family? I'm like, oh, I guess so. I mean, this is somebody that I've known, went to the same church since I was born, family friend of ours. Well, come to find out, she actually was in the room when I was born. And she was actually friends with my birth mother. She had just passed away, but she figured, well, let me reach out and try to tell you her, her story and, the other family and the other kids that are, involved, because they didn't necessarily know that I existed at the time. And I didn't say I didn't feel like I necessarily needed to know, but I was curious. It kind of piqued my curiosity at that point. So basically she explained, the situation and, what happened with her, and just that she had, several other kids at the time, and just didn't feel like she could take care of somebody at that point, somebody that she didn't necessarily have a relationship with. And I'm like, all right, that's great. And then kind of from there, kind of piqued my curiosity even more. So I did the 23andMe and found out actually who my birth father was. He had passed away years before that, but I got to know his family, who did a lot of things. He said that he was very promiscuous and kind of assumed that something like that would happen. But it was just really interesting to kind of know that, it kind of gave an answer, kind of closure to something that I didn't necessarily feel was an issue at my, inside. Being adopted, sometimes I think growing up, I kind of use that against my parents. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not even your own child.
So when did you know that you were adopted?
I always knew. I don't feel like there was, I don't feel like there was ever like a moment that I didn't know.
So, but was it you had a sixth sense that you were adopted, or
they just always were upfront with me? They always told me that, like when I was growing up. So I always felt like I knew, but I always kind of felt that like inside. You know how we are as like kids and teenagers. You just kind of use that for the opportune time. When you're having your argument with your parents and just trying to say like, well, I'm not even your own child. Even though I didn't necessarily feel like that, but, of course it came up. So it just kind of like internally, those are still like the struggles that I always had. I always struggled like kind of knowing who I was. I grew up as an only child. realizing that, yeah, I'm all by myself, I'm all alone. What does it really mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like this kind of gave some of those answers, some of those, curiosities, like, oh, okay, this is what it could have been.
Hmm. No, that's very interesting, and obviously, there's many people out there dealing with the same stuff, and you having the ability to learn about your family, where some
Yeah.
just don't. My situation with my adopted son, he was ripped out of his family home with his other siblings at 7. Um, sitting there, huddled up by, a stove to keep warm. That's what I was told when they pulled all the kids out. Mom died of drug overdose. Biracial family. Yeah, your mom was Caucasian, and dad's in jail. Well, actually, his biological dad's in jail for life. Uh, is actually where he probably belongs. But you know, being 7, which is different from your story where you had a loving family. At 7, he goes into the system, and then at every stage of at time of his life, had to get ripped out of that home to go to another home.
Yep.
You imagine how for him, making a bond, and then all of a sudden that bond's gone, and then move to another one, and to another one, and same cycle happens until they turn 18, and then they're just turned loose out in the world. And it's amazing how you have the perspective of being adopted and seeing it from your side of how you feel inside, and then looking at it from the lens of somebody that was in the system, didn't have the luxury that you had, how much harder that may be. And I could tell you, being an adopted father, which is for an at-risk child, it's probably one of the most hardest things to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I spent my time in the military, Secret Service, CIA, a lot of training, but nothing could train you for what you're gonna experience. The pain, the trauma, the tears that comes out, the anger, because like you said, you're sitting there and you'll use that for your parents at times. You're not even, my real parents. Same thing I had to deal with, coming back out and, to me when he was angry and saying the same thing.
Yeah.
What he was saying was, "You're not going to be here. You're just going to throw me away." And it's really hard at times, as parents, we just don't get it. We don't understand.
Yep.
And then you add in the fact that there's children out there that have that disconnect, or that, like you, had that feeling like I don't belong.
Yeah.
You're going through the emotional trauma of that, especially when you're going through your ages of, developing yourself as a person, young age, and how that feeling of this is not really my family, this is not, uh, I don't really belong here, really comes to effect. And I've seen it firsthand, and it's the hardest thing that I had to go through. But I can't imagine, you know, being in your shoes and being in my son's shoes, the emotional trauma of feeling that way, where it's just this heavy burden of how do I fit in life?
Yep.
And the question is like, I assume for you, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, the question of, why did not my mom want me?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, it's interesting because like the contrast, a lot of people think that, just from being adopted to being a foster parent, it's so different, but it's really not. It's just on a different scale.
Mhm.
And, even in a perfect situation, in a perfect setup, in the perfect home, there's still things that you carry with you. And sometimes you don't know when they're going to come out.
Yeah.
You don't know that feeling. You don't know how difficult, it can be, because you don't have anybody. You're under this impression there's nobody else that you can talk to.
Yeah.
There's nobody else that understands, because all you have is yourself and your own emotions and the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's what's so difficult to understand, that But and especially, at the time, like, even, as growing up in the 90s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the ability to reach out on social media to the extent that we do today,
Mhm.
where that there are groups, there are people out there that have gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
And just being fortunate, even later, just being able to come up with some of those answers, that it really helps on the inside. I couldn't say that I understand everything, but just being able to talk to um, the other siblings
Yeah.
that have been out there, from cousins to uncles to, half sisters, um, i- it's really, it's changed everything
Yeah.
because it gave kind of I guess you could say almost like a what if situation of, if this changed just a little bit differently, how things would have been changed.
Yeah. Because you do a complete retrospect of your whole life.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of choices that we make in life and how one little choice can change everything. You know, I think I'm in a situation now, running for House of Delegates, a situation now I'm more prepared today than I was 10 years ago
Mhm.
because A, the life experience, but just having those answers, I think kind of makes everything a little bit more of I feel more of an understanding
Yeah.
and more of a relation, with people in those same circumstances,
Yeah.
and understanding that. And, basically just saying like, hey, I'm a product of, a good home, a good structure, and what that can be, even though, for whatever reasons, it didn't work out with my birth family, but they made the right decision. They had options on the
Mhm.
table to make choices for themselves. And look at what happened. This is great, but just not everybody's able to afford, the adoptions.
Mhm.
There's a significant cost,
Oh yeah.
and people that want to adopt might not be able to adopt like my parents were able to adopt. And then they have to look at the foster, situation, which, you know, can be considered a lesser, expense compared to adopting from birth. But there's also issues and things that come up that are, uniquely different, and it makes it difficult. And a lot of parents, a lot of people aren't prepared for a lot of those,
Yeah.
situations either.
You were blessed that you were able to at birth have a family to take you in and make
Yeah.
you on their own, and you still had to go through the issues of the feelings. Right now we have tons of kids out there that are like my son that are sitting in foster care, and a lot of them are actually in, hundreds are in Fairfax County public schools.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know, and a lot of them are, going through the motions of seeing other kids with families and try not to make mention of that they are sitting in foster care or they're sitting in a group home. Things like that really starts to dig into children. Seeing that, I mean, you as a child had to deal with not fitting in, not or not quite fitting in with your family as you're somewhat different. And you said that,
Yep.
your family told you on early on, where it was, and, that you were adopted, but you said you still had this feeling inside you. We have a lot of kids out here, and I always mention to everyone, especially in a situation where we live in Fairfax County, um, there are a lot of people that have the means, and we just don't have enough, people doing things, reaching out, helping out with these kids. And that's why, I title this, Forgotten Kids, because they're kind of just pushed to the side.
Well, I think, especially here in, Fairfax and really the country for that matter, we are in a situation where mental health is everything.
Hmm.
And a lot of times these situations are often ignored as not being in that mental health thing. But this is 100% what I dealt with growing up. And I'm sure that
Yeah.
exactly the same thing, but it just wasn't necessarily recognized as something to address or even how to address it.
Yeah. You know the most amazing thing. So I just got back from my family reunion in California. So it's the first time that my adopted son Dominic was able to see complete family in one
Yeah.
sitting. You're talking about 200 Sabios, and he actually told me, he said, Dad, now I know what it feels to be a Sabio. I know what it feels to be a part of a family, and it really affected me because how many kids are out there that are going through life that get to a
Yeah.
certain point in their life to where they are past 18 and they don't have that connection with anybody. They don't have that connection, with a family, and they're running their life, lost, just living day by
Yeah.
day. And that's why I tell people, they talk about, the pipeline from public school to prison, and
Yeah.
there very well is a pipeline. And people talk about that. What are you gonna do about that? What are you gonna do about that? You can't do anything about it. You know what you can do? You can foster. You can adopt these kids. How about
Yeah.
that? Because I get that all the time now. I get that from people on Twitter telling me, what are you gonna do about the public school to prison pipeline? And I turn around and tell them, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Are you gonna adopt? Are you gonna foster? Are you gonna mentor? Because these kids are not dealt these cards.
Well, especially I think the mentorship of it, with situations, because you don't know what's going on in somebody's mind.
Mhm.
And sometimes just by being there, being available, you can have that, you could open up more.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first time that I've even talked about it since this has happened, in a public forum. I've, talked to it with, a handful of friends, but, this is the first time that I've actually been able to open up about it and discuss it, for that matter. And I'm fortunate enough that, you know, they were actually good people as well.
Yeah.
Really good family, and they actually lived out in some of them lived out in California and Dallas and kind of Kansas City, all kind of spread out. But one of the things that I think that resonated the most with me was actually from one of my birth uncles, that because just trying to understand the whole process, like I don't even know what to call them, to an
Yeah.
extent, like like I didn't grow up with them, but part of me was from them. And it was funny. Well, two things really. The first one was, I was actually told the first time I talked to one of my birth uncles on the phone, because my birth father passed away probably been 20 years ago. And he says, "Oh my gosh, you sound just like him."
Mhm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, number one. But number two, I think this was the most resonating thing, I think, for me. He said, "Next time you talk to your parents, tell them not to worry about you. They did a great job raising you. You have a level head on your shoulders, and you're their child, and not to worry about ever losing you to your birth family relatives. We're just honored to add you to the family. So give your mom and dad a big hug from us."
And it's funny. It's hard because with myself having my son, the mom died, but there's still family around, and he had to go through that process. Trying
Yeah.
to see if he could reconnect, and it's really hard because you sit there and you pour everything into a child to just at the end, is there a possibility that they move on from you and go with the other family, and now those Christmas, those vacations, those everything is with them and not with you. It was hard to go through that process. I can tell you, I think that was a fear of mine, but I had to pray and believe. Okay, well, if that's the case, I did my part. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful to hear from your uncle saying, don't worry, tell him not to worry. We're not gonna, try to take you away or
And that was the thing too. I didn't even have to mention it.
yeah,
It was just something that was just kind of an assumption. So I didn't even have to explain how I was feeling.
yeah,
It's just something that you were just kind of able to connect, and they understood.
yeah.
And that's about as good of a deal as you could possibly can get, because it's not even just from being adopted, but it's from the ones adopting as well.
Mhm.
And just trying to, like, even from my parents, now for them to understand the whole thing too, because that was also a concern
Yeah.
that I had too. I didn't want them to feel like, I'm pushing them away,
Yeah.
because that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah, and with my son, at one point in time, he tells me, I want to see my biological father,
Yeah.
if he can set it up. And so you can imagine me sitting there trying to protect him. And now he's saying he wants to go see his biological father. Um, so I asked him why. He said he needed closure. And I said, if that's seriously something you need, I understand, but how is it going to affect your dad?
Yeah.
You know, um, he ended up rethinking, didn't want to do it, but I had to be supportive of it, even though everything inside of me was saying, why are you even doing that? Why are you even entertaining doing that? But it's hard because you're trying to do this balancing act as an adopted father. You're doing a balancing act in very early stages of trying to give them as much support, but also trying to protect your feelings. Like how is this going to affect you at the end of the day?
Yeah.
How it, because it becomes this choice. Am I going to be not chosen? It's sort of this ends up being this little competition. I'm going to show them, you don't need that. I'm enough for you. I mean, a little bit different situation, mom, but she still had uncles and aunts and everything, but a little bit different situation with the dad being incarcerated for life.
Yeah.
But I still went through that process. And, I can imagine your parents having to go through that process too,
Yeah.
to feel
Because
like,
my mom is she's very emotional when it comes to that kind of stuff.
yeah,
She's like, she always overthinks anything, like you don't even have to say anything. And she's, already put words in your mouth. And I'm like, no, that's not, not the case at all. So, so it's like, in a way, it's like I have to be very mindful of that,
well, it's her fear,
as
it's
well.
being scared.
Yeah. And really in reality, it just opened it more up. And then you realize like how much more special you are because you were able to go through the process
Mhm.
and realize, oh, somebody chose me. There's a lot of people that aren't chosen,
Yeah.
but the choice was made. They chose me, and I grew up in a great place, great environment, and I feel like it's brought me to the situation where I am today, where I want to give back.
Hmm.
I want to be able to support my community, people that have gone through the same things that I have, and all politics is local. We get caught up so much in like the federal things, all the distractions, but at the end of the day, it's really all about what goes on here at the local level that affects us the most. And by being involved, having life experiences, there's so many people that run for office that don't have those life experiences. And by going through, yeah, I can't say the road was easy.
Hmm.
Um, but we have to have those bumps in the road. We can't have everything perfect.
Of course.
Growing up, it wasn't perfect. I was in a great situation, but sometimes, our life experiences is what causes us to get up because it's how you react to those experiences and how you push past that. And that's exactly what, I feel like we've done. And by being able to give back a little bit, by being able to support the community and other people that have gone through those things, that's what I think, it's really all about.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, about the initiatives of doing giving back. You know, not too long ago, spoke at NAACP, and they only give you 90 seconds to speak on something because there's about a billion candidates
Sure.
out there talking about everything else under the sun. And I took my time to speak about this,
Yeah.
because this is something that I experienced. It's something that I saw firsthand.
Yeah, and this is not a partisan issue.
No.
This is an issue that affects everybody.
But here's the thing, we start talking about, rising crime, our kids that are, when people say, look at the society, our kids are just out of control. Mentorship goes a long way. And when I was sitting there talking or standing and talking to them, I challenge them. It's a community that's going to get this. Our community is great as far as saying what we need to do. We need to help the kids. We need to do this. We need to do this. But our community is terrible is actually doing the action.
Yeah.
And what I tell a lot of people, it's great that you have talking points. Great that you have ideas. Are you doing anything with those ideas? If not, you're just sitting in the stands. And I always tell them, hey, there's a
Yep.
lot of place here on the game field. Come on down. And still, after those talks, we still get no action because everyone will come out with excuses. Why?
Yeah.
I don't have the time. Okay. I don't have the experience. I can't deal with what if the emotional issues are just too much? There's a lot of excuses what people say to steer them out of there because it's all unknown.
Right.
But I always tell people, well, why don't you focus on this? Instead of focusing on the worst case scenarios or the reasons why you can't do it, why don't you focus on what you can do and how you can shape someone's life? And I always tell people this also. Then a day, when you're on your deathbed, what do you want to be remembered? What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
You want to be remembered that you had a great house, a good car, a good job, or that you gave back, unselfless, that you gave everything you can to help others. And I challenge everyone out there, and talk with the crowd out there. I challenge you to take one little step. It doesn't cost much. If you get involved with a youth group, a mentor group, you can help out many kids and even kids that have families that are in broken homes. It just takes one action could change the direction of a kid into a positive, negative direction. And, we don't have enough of that. And every time I hear a lot of people talk about, what they want to do for kids, especially on the school board, I'll go to every school board member and say, what did you do for a kid? You want to be an activist? You want to scream and shout and say, I want these for kids. I want this for kids. Have you ever taken in a kid? Have you ever comforted them? Have you ever taken an at-risk kid in and deal with the trauma, deal with the unknown that you're walking into? And a lot of them won't or can't. And again, I can tell you right now, some of these school board members we have on there, they have the means to be able to do this, but they're not willing.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're not going to do something about it, then don't say anything about it. And I think we have a society that's built around that. Great idea, fairies, all these wonderful ideas, but nothing goes into action. And that's one of the things that, when we were talking, and I really gravitate to your platform and us working together, me being in the school board and you being in the state, is trying to push more initiatives forward.
Yeah.
And striving just to save one child at a time. We can't accomplish this through 100 people at one time, but we can influence one family to take one child in to be a foster, and then one more family, and that ripple effect just continues to happen. And I can tell you from my experience being a foster parent that there are programs, the foster care program that I had to go through courses. I had to get vetted, background check, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But these courses are wonderful courses. It teaches you. Then they give you a support network. Myself, one of my initiatives I want to work with you on when you get in House Delegate is to push funding to expand this, not just for people that are being foster parents or mentors, but for teachers to learn how to deal with kids going through what they quote unquote at risk, or for the actual parents. Because as a parent, I didn't get a manual when my kids were born. And I have 3 biological kids. And when I went through that course, I learned so much. And so there's so much knowledge that this program is out there that I want to work with you to expand that, to give that to everywhere, to all the parents, all the teachers, give the opportunity. Because we are running into a society where we have these kids that even in the homes, broken homes, one parent family, or parents are working so hard because our economy is pretty much in the tank that they don't have time to be with the kids, and that's really affecting them. And so I think programs like that is taking a step forward and actually trying to reach out to kids and come out with solutions as opposed to talking points. And that's all
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of people in our community that don't know all the initiatives, all the programs that are available. And that's what, we have to do. We have to educate everybody to know what's available and how we can move forward and make it more of a solution
Mhm.
to the problem. I mean, for years we've been giving excuses about, our issues and so many other issues going forward, but we have to take action and be able to do something.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do. As we take action, we start doing these things. It's amazing when you see one child that you can actually move from that what they call the public school to prison pipeline, and you see the joy, you see the effect that you had on a child. It means everything. So me personally going through all that, seeing where my son is at, that he has a family, that he could have been a statistic, he could have ended up dead, and now he's not. Um, would I do it all over again? Yes. Would I do it now? 100%. Do it now. Adopt another child.
Yeah.
You know, uh, we give a lot of excuses. If you can't adopt like your parents did, like I did, there's so many people that could carve out an hour a day, an hour a week, just to spend time with kids. I mean, good, solid, individuals that have, that can be good, great mentors. And talking about that, my personal life growing up, I came from a broken home. Mom, and dad separated, and a lot of trauma there from that. We personally neglected, growing up. Dad was living in Los Angeles, and I was in San Diego. And growing up in a very not nice area called National City. If you guys know what National City is, it's a place you don't want to go to.
Yeah.
And so for myself, I felt a lot of what you're saying, not feeling that family, not feeling that connection, seeing other kids with a mom and a dad, playing football and not having any of my parents there, feeling that isolation. And and I wasn't, part of the system. Yeah, my mom was at home, but she was busy working, my dad. And so you're left here trying to navigate things yourself, you know, and it wasn't until for myself when I was 16 where, a gun was pulled out of me. It was my 16th birthday. Like what kid should be past, it was past midnight and what kid should be there. And during that time, car rolls up, a gun was pulled out. It said, what do you claim? And, I just said, hey, it's my birthday, nowhere for me to run, you know, anything could have happened. Luckily, I always say God intervenes on everything and has a plan for everyone's life. Moved on. And from that moment on, I told myself, that this is not the life I want. It's not the life I want to live. I could sit here and be another person saying, this is all I have, which I was told in school. This is what your life is going to be. But I moved on, moved in the military, found great mentors that believed in me. And so I took a lot of those traits that as a kid, that I had great mentors into what I did for my son and a frustration because I was that way, just a different situation.
Because sometimes even hearing it from somebody else that's not your parents, sometimes it's enough to kind of resonate,
Hmm.
with them. Because I know, like, even when I had like issues with my parents, I, had other people from the church, other people from, school, teacher, where I was able to just talk to them and they're like, kind of basically confirmed everything my parents said. I said, okay, fine. They're not, as bad as I thought they could have been.
Yeah.
So
It
it definitely has an effect.
Oh, it does. It does. But mentorship, I would say, not just for kids that don't have parents, like my son, but every kid. Mentorships goes a long way to steer a child into the right direction. And when I talk to people, that I hate to say it, I don't like talking much about my past or things like that because I don't want to be rated upon, my past. But my journey is of that being mentored. And so when I got to that point where I had my family, I built my family, my kids, they grown up, and now the ability to give back to help another child out. For me, I was compelled to because other people did it for me. And I'm sure there's countless stories of individuals that had great mentors going through, and imagine the impact that those mentors had in their life and steering them to what they achieved. And I tell my mentors right now, every achievement that I've gained, going from the military to the Secret Service to the CIA, I tell them that it's because of you guys. It's not because of me. And the power of mentorship towards young adults is unbelievable. And we're seeing it today that we need mentors. We need people out there in the streets helping these kids out more than anything else now. And every time I hear it, I'm just tired of hearing talking points, tired of hearing good plans that they think would be awesome, but they
Yeah.
do zero action upon it. And I know Herndon, huge, huge minority community, which more so than where I'm at in Providence District, but Herndon has a large group over there. Um, what programs? Do you know any programs that are happening in Herndon right now that people could get a part of?
I mean, those are the things that I think we need to look at expanding.
Hmm.
I know the town council has looked at a lot of things specifically in the area, but I mean these are things that we need to expand. And I've been told by so many people that have been part of the establishment for a long time of ignore ignore half the people in my area, and that's just not acceptable. And for so long we've ignored some of that community, some of that population, and that's just got to stop. And
Yeah,
we definitely need to look at expanding, understanding the issues that they face, because it's all unique situations, and that's what we need to continue to do. And you mentioned about the mentorship, and I even thought about this. We have a family friend of ours that helped my parents. She was basically involved to try to help, basically lay out their lifestyle, which basically, set them up for adoption so they could adopt me. And she ended up becoming a state legislator. Her name was Phyllis Gilmore, and she just recently passed away not too long ago. But, that was probably part of my, internal desire that kind of set me up for what I'm doing today.
yeah.
It's to get involved and to be part of that. So, we definitely need to, look at more of these programs and get it, set up,
A lot of
especially
these
unique for our area.
a lot of these programs are started up just because people are caring,
Yeah.
and we got to get involved in them. I do have a foundation, Lasting Hope Foundation, which I'm working in churches to be able to get food, food drives and get it out to the needy. But with that, I decided I'm going to create scholarships for kids so they can have something, so they're not feeling lost, they're not feeling, as second class citizens. And on top of that, you know, I want to drive more into the community as far as community engagement with a lot of these children that are sitting in group homes. You wouldn't even
Yeah.
know these things, but these group homes they're all around. I lived in, you know, before I moved down into Fairfax County, I was in Leesburg, and my son took me to one of the group homes that he lived at. I didn't even know it was a group home, but it's
Yeah.
sitting right there,
Out in
and
the open.
you could go in, you could see these kids, and it's terrible because you have a bunch of kids that don't feel belonging. They don't belong to anyone, and so being able to to push these experiences out to other people and to say to them, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be there and present. Training's there. That's what they taught us. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to be
No.
present and try to be there and try to listen and get
Because a
through.
lot of people try to measure success, and you can't.
No.
If you can make a difference in one person's life, if that is all that you made a difference in, it was a success.
Yeah, I feel, just having my adopted son and him being successful, that all the glory that could ever made got in the military and the government, all these other things, accolades or whatnot, means nothing compared to what I did. Saving a life,
Yep.
Going out there saving a life and sacrificing, the easy life, so to speak, to deal with the drama that comes with that, what comes with adopting an at-risk child. you know Eh, a lot of people will say, why do I want to deal with that stress? Life is stressful, but the rewards at the end, the
That's worth
rewards,
it.
the bounty of that reward is unbelievable. And on Twitter, before people started finding out that I actually have an adopted son that is half black, half white, they one of the Twitter people on there wrote to me, because of my security background, said, you just want to put black kids in handcuffs. And I was like, you don't even know me. You don't even know that I actually do things in the community, and I actually do stuff. I just never publicized it. It's coming out now, but that's the mentality that's out there. It's just very nasty, especially when you get in politics. But it's not going to stop me, because what I want to do at the end, dealing with the pain, dealing with the hate or whatever comes my way. If I could do the same thing and save one more life, save another of these kids, at the end of the day, it's worth it, because our politicians aren't doing anything about that. It's like you
Nope.
said, they said, don't worry about that. And the reason why they say that is because they are running for votes. They're not running for the community. They're not running to help people. They're not running to save lives. They're not running to make a change, because when they make a change, then they don't have anything to run on. Because when everything's fixed, what are you going to run on? And that is the most, to me, the most disgusting thing.
Yeah.
That they will say, don't talk to that side of the group because XYZ. And when I hear other politicians tell me that, or the candidates tell me that, or people that work in the political field tell me that, don't bother. It makes me want to.
Oh, 100%. And at the end of the day, I'm running to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not, we win at the end of the day, we want to be able to we want to make a difference in our community. And that's why state elections are so important, because you can influence the way things are. Presidential elections, Senate elections, yeah, there's some influence that can be made, but everything that happens to your day-to-day lives, the potholes in the streets, to what happens at work, to your paycheck, your taxes, it's all local.
Yeah.
You have your direct influence locally, and that's why I got involved. I didn't get involved for the paycheck, because the pay is not there.
Yeah.
I'm getting involved because this is the right thing to do. And there's the amount of money that has to be spent, in order to run or facilitate, or at least the amount of money that we think that we need to have, it all needs to change. And it just takes one person, one opportunity, get in there, make a difference. And that's what I'm really excited about.
No, and I think I'm looking on here. I knew that 2:00 is not going to give me a lot of people, because you're all at work right now. So we're not going to get a lot of comments here. We got the peanut gallery over here. Peanut gallery, you have a question? No, none. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But I really want to talk about the art of the mentorship, and why it's so important, and why we have to motivate ourselves and motivate others to do the same. God says, and sorry, it's my podcast. I got my religious and spiritual views on things. If you don't like it, get your own podcast. I like tossing humor in there, but nevertheless, you know, God gives us a path for us to go along our journey, and in that path, we have to make decisions. Either we keep going right or left, and at times, God wants you to go in certain directions that you don't want to go into. And God gives you the abilities to do certain things, put you through a path to get you to a point where He needs to use you. And I challenge you to really look inside and say, what does God have for me? How does He want to use me? And it could be as simple as being a mentor, as simple as being a youth coach, mentoring young kids. It could be as simple as just getting involved, or it could be as simple as adopting a child and dealing with healing of a child. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're not rated upon the earthly things that we obtain. We're not rated upon, the materials. We're rated upon what we actually do in society and how we help others. Like I said, good ideas are great. They're fantastic. I love hearing good ideas. But what are you doing with those ideas? That's what matters. So when I talk to you, and if you're hearing the sound of my voice, and this may be you where you're wondering if you do have the power, if you do have the strength, if you do have the means, don't think, don't worry about it. It'll be provided. Just go and do it. So if you can, help out a child in any way you can. Be there, be a mentor. Because be an adopted parent, I highly suggest that you do it. It's the most rewarding thing. If you could be a foster parent, please do that because they need all the help they can. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll guide you in the right direction, what you need to do. If you want more questions, you want to help out, I do have my foundation, Lasting Hope Foundation, that's going to be helping out with the community because, I'm not running for myself. And after this election, which we will win, we will make the change. How are we going to affect our kids? How are we going to actually put this into play? And my foundation is going to be something that's going to be long lasting beyond my years. That's going to continue doing the good work. So please, if you have questions on that, if you want to join that, feel free. If you want to help out Max, go ahead and give a plug of your website and what the people can do to help you out.
Yeah, you can go to maxfisherforvirginia.com, or you can follow me on social media on Facebook or Instagram. But yeah, I mean, the easiest thing for us is, the donate. We need to be able to continue to be competitive. And if you feel, this is a worthwhile investment, feel free to go out, from anything from $5 to $500. It doesn't matter. Everything goes to a good cause. Everything goes to, getting the message out. And that's really it. Just about getting the message out. It's, not about, for me, I have nothing to gain from this except just making a difference. And that's all we want to do. And we just need your help to do it.
Well, I thank you for that. And like I said, everyone that comes, any candidate that comes on board this show gets my full endorsement. I'm very picky on that because I'm pretty much having, it's like a marriage right now with this guy. But I do believe that a lot of initiatives that I want to do at the community level is going to take someone like Max to push up into the state level. Because there are money that needs to be shifted over. There's a lot of resources that need to be shifted over to this. So Max, I guess I'll make it official.
Yeah.
Since you're on my show, that I fully endorsed you. And if you want to put that on your website, feel free. Just make sure you get a great picture of me.
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone. And also, a little birdie told me that it's your birthday.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yeah, July 6th.
July 6th, but it's
July
going to be
6th.
celebrated today. So I hope everyone wish Max Fisher a happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening in. Please, any questions we didn't get to, I'll look it up later on. Mary, who does my normal behind the scenes work, she's not here right now, so I'm kind of running things solo. I thank you and God bless.